Hi guys, Bill again. I finally got some time to myself, but instead of lavishing it on my family or coming up with some decent content for you guys, I hogged the lot, kept it all to myself. It was a fun week. Still, I kept a camera rolling for some of it, so if anyone doesn't know what a neck-bearded internet shitlord gets up to in his spare time, keep watching. You might just learn a thing or two. Now, I've been really impressed with my solid state boot drive. I just can't get over how quick solid state drives are, even now, over 3 years down the line. So, I did what any self-respecting geek would do. I ran out and bought another one to keep my games on. Now that wee red beauty that you're looking at is a 240GB Corsair Neutron XT series 2.5 inch 7mm SATA 3 solid state drive with MLC flash. It reads at 560 megabytes a second, it writes at 540 megabytes a second, it's capable of 100,000 IOPS. No, I don't know what any of that bollocks means either. But the drive is fucking fast. You don't get much for your cash though. They don't even include any fasteners. Now luckily my case came with lots of spares, and most motherboards these days include SATAs. I filmed the SATA connections just to give you an idea of just how simple it is to plug in one of these bad boys. And yeah, I know it's in the wrong slot in the motherboard, but you can't see the 6GB ones from that angle. Don't worry, I swapped it around after I turned the camera off. I also tidied up that wiring before I stuck the case back on, or the case door back on. Now that was back in February, and it's been flawless ever since. I was surprised at just how much difference it made. One of the things that I wasn't expecting was that frame rates actually went up, sometimes by almost half in some of the games that I play. That was really unexpected, but it was really cool as well. Now the next up is, this is just last week, is me clearing some space inside the case. I pulled the sound card and the wireless adapter. I put the radio link back in on another slot, but the sound card's still in an anti-static bag. Do you know, I can't honestly tell the difference between the £100 sound blaster and the onboard sound. So, to be honest, I'd rather have one less thing generating heat and obstructing the airflow in there. Now the reason that I needed this space is fairly simple. I needed to get another graphics card in there. When I bought the system, I did some serious soul searching before finally settling on my card. The GTX 690 was painfully expensive, but it was pretty much the fastest, most powerful GPU on the market at the time. It could match the performance of two GTX 680s, which were Nvidia's best gaming cards. And that's not really surprising, since the card's basically two 680s under a vapour cooler. Now it was very trick 3 years ago, and it's not too shabby now, to be perfectly honest. Still, I've been hankering after a 3-monitor setup for a long time now. The increased demands of newer games and having to drive 3 times the screen area was bound to stretch my card, and that left me with a bit of a dilemma. Should I go around? Should I replace the card? I'd need 2 brand new mid-level GPUs just to equal the 690's performance. To get a noticeable improvement, I'd have to buy 2 top-level cards, and it's a lot of money to be laying down, when really I want to be spending the money on new monitors. Now I know I could get the kit in drips and drabs. You know, I could get a monitor or a new card now, then another in a few months' time. I could run with 2 monitors for a while, but it's not very appealing, you know. Well, needs must. There's a lot of gamers that constantly upgrade their kit, and the latest cards have pretty much caught up with the 690's performance. Now what that means is there's deals to be had if you don't mind using second-hand or used gear. So I looked around. I scored a second Gainward 690 identical to my own card and ISLI'd it. Now if you're not a Elite gamer, that's where you connect two NVIDIA graphics cards, which pretty much doubles your graphics processing power. And that's very useful if you're planning on running multiple monitors. Now another thing I did was I added another 200mm fan to the case, which was fun in games. It turns out that the Silent series and the FZs have got different mounting holes, in spite of the fact that they both come from Ed ZXT, which is bizarre. Anyway, doesn't matter. I got a single screw in there to damp down the vibration from the fan. I clagged in the LEDs, and now I've got this nifty, brightly lit, transparent window down into the case body. Yeah, it looks great, and the lack of fasteners don't seem to be an issue. More importantly though, I've doubled the vertical airflow, and that was the whole point of the exercise. Now a while back I used Aria. They're a British component supplier, a PC component supplier, for most of my son's computer's internals. And the guys were fantastic, great prices, fast delivery, top customer service. I think they must have enjoyed selling to me about as much as I enjoyed buying off of them, because they actually appointed an account manager to look after me, which was nice. Anyway, looking for monitors, I gave my chap a call, and he very kindly knocked a decent whack off of the price of a couple of Asus monitors. So you can consider this an unsponsored plug for them. They're highly recommended if you're looking for computer bits here in the UK. Look no further. Now, sadly, Asus no longer make my original monitor, or even a direct successor to it. So I wasn't going to get a match in any case. So what I went with instead was the lightest equivalent in their current range, rather than going for some flash new outright gaming monitors. Now unfortunately, because the new monitors aren't the same model as the one that's already fitted, it created some problems. The VESA mounting points are in a different place on the new monitors, and unfortunately the Pagnian mounting points don't have any real adjustment. To get the monitors to line up, I needed about 15mm, and that's about 10 times the amount of adjustment that you get with these Pagnian mounts. So let's back out with the drill. Anyway, what's the verdict? Well, cooling isn't an issue. I've got to admit I was a little stressed to start with, but even under heavy load, the top GPU, the hotter running one, barely reaches 70 degrees. Now 70 degrees is my hard ceiling, because the card starts to throttle at 70 degrees, even though it's rated all the way up to 105. The monitors themselves, they're absolutely gorgeous. The extra load does cause a little bit of stutter on maximum graphics settings on some of the newer games, but I've got a cunning plan for that. Watch this space. Now I filmed this next bit while I was messing about with bezels and graphics settings. Before anybody says something, yeah, I already know that I suck at FPSs. And yeah, I'm a complete noob at tanks as well. If you look closely, you'll see me get nuked by the RT, which is always fun. This weird looking plastic thing on the front of my hat is a reflector for my Track IR. Now this is a device that changes your view on screen to match small movements of your head. Now, it sounds a lot more complicated than it really is. It's incredibly intuitive, and I guarantee you, once you've played even a single game with one, you'll hate not having it, particularly when you're flying. It really comes into its own in flight sims, but even in Elite, although you don't actually need it, it adds a huge amount to the feeling of immersion. You know, for instance, one of the really neat things about your cockpit is that there are holographic displays that appear just when you look at them. You know, after a while you don't even think about it. You just glance over to your comms panel or your navigation panel or your engineering display. You make an adjustment without even taking your hands off the controls, and then you look back up and you carry on flying your ship. It's... Did I ever mention just how much I love that game? Thanks for watching, guys. Laters.